Welcome back, everyone, to the Thunderstock Show, a collection of valuable brainstorms to enhance your life, liberty, pursuit of property. This season is all about understanding what get it, wants it, has capacity means for your business and how you can work on your business, not just in your business. We're taking a look at not just what to do for goal planning and to grow for this year, but also, who are we going to best serve? Each one of us is unique individuals. Today's special guest coming on for the second time for this first time for this new season is Josh Kosnik. Josh is a seasoned entrepreneur. He started several businesses and exited. He is one of the most disciplined people that I know. Has completed 75 Hard, First Forms Challenge several times, Live Hard. And he's coached CEOs, entrepreneurs, professional athletes, teams, also in EOSI. Josh, great to have you on, man.
Appreciate you having me back. I was hoping for the Thunderstruck AC/DC intro.
Yeah,
Just go right along. Maybe you couldn't get copyrights on it.
I will talk with my new editor. He's been great. Some of right people, right seats. I got one that's a keeper. If there's a way to get around the ACDC copyright police, we'll probably figure it out. We might.
That'd be awesome.
You're the second person this week that said that, so that's a sign. Josh, real quick background. You have built and scaled and exited several companies, but what part of your DNA indicated to you that it's time to, not do it for a fourth time, a fifth time, do the EOSI route?
Yeah. So after I sold my last one, I had 250 employees. It was a $35 million top line company. And after that exit, it was underneath the umbrella of a Fortune 100 companies. After that exit, I was like, you know what? I built other people's brands enough. I want to do something on my own. So I started out leadership coaching. And I kept running into the same problem as I was working with these entrepreneurs. I discovered that they had two major issues and then like 136 little issues underneath them. One was human development, leadership, which I'm very skilled at. But the second one was systems and processes to help them really scale and grow. And so I had tried to self-implement in 2019 in my firm. And I always give this backdrop. The only reason I tried to self-implement wasn't because I thought I was better than getting an implementer, wasn't that it wasn't for any other reason than I was too ADD to read the back of the book. I literally didn't know implementers existed. I'm a 98% visionary, a high quick start, 9 on the quick start. And I literally didn't know that implementers existed because I would have gladly stroked that check. So I read Traction, not the back of the book, like I just said. Then I read Rocket Fuel. And I looked around my leadership table and I realized I had a problem. My problem is that all my leaders thought like me. I didn't have an integrator in the room to really be the brake to our gas. So I went on a charge for 6 months to find this right person, right seat. I ended up finding her, and it was amazing. The first L10 she was in, she was like, "Great discussion, guys. What's the solution?" And we're like, "Oh, this is different. Like, I guess we do have to solve some of the shit that we just been talking about, not just having great discussion." So she is the one employee I brought with me, knowing that I needed her to help me build the next thing. So it was about a year and a half into my building this coaching business up that I decided to go get trained on EOS as that problem kept reoccurring or kept popping up within some of my clientele.
Yeah, I love the self-awareness. You mentioned your Colby Quick Start. I find a lot of visionaries like you, like me. I think an 8 or a 9 in Quick Start. They have that, all right, idea, execute, like, let's go. And then it wasn't until years into me being in EOS that I found an integrator. And I was like, at first, my reaction was like, hurry up. Like, why? What's taking so long? Why do you keep telling me no? And then I realized that that's exactly what I needed. So I love the
Yeah.
self-awareness from your story. And I also love you have like confidence and humility at the same, like, two different hands where it's like, yeah, we can do this. However, there's 138 different issues in varying degrees that we have to solve before we get there. So appreciate that context. Going back to the idea of self-awareness, when we talk about like people analyzer, typically in EOS, it's for the team, which is important. But for a lot of people that listen to my show, they've got smaller businesses. Maybe they don't have a full team. Maybe they have a few contractors. What they need to get is the right clients. So how do you people analyze what a right client would be, whether that's for your business or you help or you observe this with clients that are EOS clients of yours that get it right for their like marketing strategy or how they GWC their ideal client? Like, what are some of the
Yeah.
ways you approach that?
I actually, in thinking about this question, it popped back to mind when I was 24 years old. It was my first business I was starting as a financial advisor. And at that time, it's, eat what you kill industry, right? So anyone that could fog a mirror was a potential client. You quickly realize that is not the path to take, but that's the thought process you have as you're trying to make money and build a business and whatever it may be. So as I've like progressed the last 20 years and understand this, whether it's a new startup or otherwise, people really don't understand that. They think that having the largest niche possible or not having a niche at all increases their chance of business. What they don't understand is that no, you exist to solve a problem for a specific niche. And it's like, okay, so if I can narrow that down, and what I've worked with some marketing people on, and maybe you can speak to this since this is your world, but like I've created multiple different lanes of product offerings, but I had to figure out what are the three avatars I'm trying to serve. Right. So I'm like,
Love it.
okay, this avatar is a business owner that has X, Y, and Z. This one is a high performer that or a leadership team that has X, Y, and Z. And then this one, same thing, do the same thing. And everyone else doesn't fit. You're just marketing to those three avatars that are your ideal perfect clients. And then the thought comes to mind, okay, well, how will anyone else know? Will I get anyone else? Well, it's not to say that you won't want anyone else, but they will come in attract, they will be attracted, and you get to decide, is it a right fit or not for what you're offering? Can they afford it? Do they really need what your problem is solving? Whatever it may be. So one of the great examples who does this really well is Superhuman. John Madsen, former NFL athlete. And if anyone's seen his ads on Instagram, LinkedIn, anywhere, he literally starts off most of his ads with saying, if you make 150 grand or more, and most people tune out. But those that make 150 grand or more go, I'm listening. And then he goes on to talk about how he changes their life through like physical body. And he has these trainers that can actually help you get in the best shape of your life. And so it was funny the first time I heard that because I've made over 100, and not to brag, but like I've made over 150 for a long, long time. It's like,
Hmm.
okay, that's an interesting start to an ad.
Right.
And then I listened to it more and it's like, he's really niched down because his program starts at about 10 grand a year.
Right.
So if you make less than 100, it's not likely that you're actually going to
Yeah.
benefit from that program.
Yeah. Who's going to be able to budget like 10% or more of their total like take home for a program? So it makes sense. And marketers, they call that the hook of an ad. And to your point, it's not like you say no to everybody that's not exactly like this, right? It's like 80-20. It's like if you
Yep.
get 80% of your clients to be one of these three I think you referred to psychographic, but in marketing, a lot of people, when they're coming through the process of who is their ideal client, there's different ways to look at it. Like traditionally, it's like what's their age, gender, demographic, where they live, things like that. But psychographics like the core value. And I think that what you described is by being more niche, and I would say like having standards almost, right?
Yeah.
Like once you set the standard, it's like, hey, as long as you are, meet the standard, then we can talk. I think that for a lot of people that are just starting, it's like, and you said it, you said eat what you kill, anything that we could, hunt down, whether that's rabbits or squirrels. It's like, no, we're going deer hunting. Like,
Yeah.
let's find a deer. We're not going to shoot anything and everything that moves in the woods from a hunting analogy.
Yep.
No, I
That's a
really
great
like
one.
that. You serve a demographic of people that traditionally is, 10 to 250 employees, industry agnostic, eager that's eager to grow. Right? Those are some of like the key mark points of an EOS corporate. But what about Josh, like your own business in EOS? Like what are some additional things that you're looking for?
Yeah.
And then
So that's a good, go
Mhm.
ahead.
And I was just gonna say the follow-up was on how did you land on those things to look for?
Yeah. So one of the things that I look for is revenue. And the reason I look for revenue, similar to John Madsen's ad, is like I'm not the least expensive EOS implementer out there. I know that I started at a higher point because of my business experience. Again, it wasn't to be braggadocious, it was just knowing my worth. And so I look for that because I don't want to eat into what they're needing to grow their business or their lifestyle. So, right. And I've referred to other EOSIs that charge less than I do because again, I have a ethical or moral standing as like, hey, I'm not trying to eat up what is your lifestyle or what you need to do to make the next hire to grow your business. So there is typically what I've said is at least 2 million, and there has to be a certain profit margin with that. The vast majority of my clients are around that 8 to 10 million. And then we have some that are way higher than that. But that's really what we look for on the revenue side. The other piece of it that's more, let's say, esoteric is I don't find any joy or energy for around being around mediocrity. It actually saps my energy, and therefore knowing that about myself is I really want to be around teams and leaders that are really trying to change the world in their little sector of business. They're trying to do something big, and I can be a catalyst in their world.
Yeah, that leads me to the idea of like working on your business. Like you make time daily to work out. Like you have, motion, like movement, whether that's cardio or kettlebells in the morning, you do weight training in the afternoon. That's like a non-negotiable, sort of like
Yeah,
setting the standard. When I never thought about this before this point in the conversation, but for a lot of small business owners that are listening, it's like sometimes working on the business is working on you. Like, what are your habits? If you're a solopreneur, you are the business, right? You can't perform. Your business will suffer if you don't sleep. Your business will suffer if you don't fuel yourself with the proper nutrition or get movement in or you have poor mental health. And for you, you want people that are already working on themselves, like that are not
yeah,
you know, I think if that's fair to say, I think that's a really interesting point too when the people try and determine like what's the psychographic. It's like there's some people I talk to that love working with people that their life's in shambles and they've got a lot of baggage coming on outside of business. They want to help them but there's other people that are like, hey, we can train this, we can teach the skills and the tools. You can't teach personal excellence, or at least
yeah.
you can, but it's not through EOS specifically.
Yeah. Well, one of my values is arete, which is Greek for excellence. And I'm part of the arete syndicate that Andy Frisella and Ed Milet launched. I'm around the first form community a lot. And so the vast majority of my clients have done 75 hard or do it every year. They are working harder on themselves than they are on their business because they value what I value is if we work harder on ourselves that's going to bleed over into making their team better. And so then their teams are getting on board with valuing personal excellence. And it's really interesting. Like I hesitate saying this, but this is an open and transparent conversation. Is like
Totally.
I don't have any overweight clients.
I mean,
They value physical fitness, they value getting better themselves, they value continuing to grow in their personal life as well as their professional life.
there's a meme I saw before this podcast, Josh, that's perfect for that sentiment. One was an overweight person and saying, I'm perfect the way I am. And one was a person with a six pack abs is like, I will never be where I want to be. And I think that spirit is what you're referring to in the essence
Yeah,
because it's
it's a constant
indicative.
yep, it's constant and never-ending improvement, the Kanai
Mhm.
mindset, and that's what I adopt, and that's how I am, is like, I will never arrive. I'm gonna fight like hell to climb that mountain to get to whatever, quote, unquote, "arrival" is, knowing that I will never get there.
So that being said, I want to go back to some of the criteria for like who really gets it. And I think we got the core value, at least from some of these anecdotes and stories done. But I'd ask you off camera, what are some of the green flags? And you said something interesting was they've already read traction and they have a friend who maybe has gone through EOS as well. So that's pretty high bar of like being self-educated and like problem aware. What do you think makes EOS so appealing to those people that you want to work with where like that's a high standard for somebody that like is aware of the problem, but you hold it and you maintain it and it works. Like what about that? uh, I don't know, I guess the question I'm trying to ask is what about that those two conditions makes it easy to put out there and like hold that standard.
Yeah, so coming from being an entrepreneur myself, I think that this is let me give you this analogy. So my buddy Brian has a company called Fitfo out in Montana, and it's a really cool company. They took old military 50 cal army canisters and they make cigar humidors out of them. They're airtight. They can customize them. They're absolutely sick. But the point I'm bringing up here is that what Fitfo stands for is figure it the fuck out. It's
Let's
but
go.
this is what every entrepreneur has to do until we figure out we basically do it dumb till we can do it smart.
Mm.
And so when people read traction, when people start hearing that, oh, this is a system that actually works for thousands of companies agnostically. If I did this as well, this would actually alleviate a lot of the figuring it out that I've had to do for the last 10 or 20 years.
Yeah, it's almost like you want to. It's a example of helping those that are already helping themselves,
Yeah.
right? Because one of the things that you said, this is really important for those that are trying to carve out who's their ideal both team member and client. It's like you don't want people that are in for a quick fix. And I don't think the nature of what you do, it's the similar with like extra like with weight loss and health, right? Like I was a wrestler. I cut 25 pounds in a week. Don't ever want to, wouldn't recommend anyone that I ever talk to or work with to do that. That, that's you want to increase your likelihood you're going to fail, do that. Go for the quick fix. So what are some of the other things potentially that are like red flags or like, as important as to say yes to things, what are some of the things that are hard no?
So one of the questions that comes up, and I know every EOSI will resonate with this one, is a lot of companies or leaders will go, "Have you ever worked with a company like this or in this industry?" And what they're really saying or asking is like, "We think that we're so unique and so different that this couldn't possibly work." And so there's some ego there, right? And that's the two spots that EOS doesn't work. And we tell every client this is publicly traded because shareholders control the quarterly decisions, not the leadership team.
Right.
And then secondly, which is the more prevalent one, and we really got to sift through, is egotistical leaders that are unwilling to change. And so I have an example. Is actually probably my fifth. Yeah, I think it was my fifth client that I took on as an EOSI. We're sitting in focus day. We get all the way through the accountability chart, and the leader of the company, the sole owner. Well, actually, let me give you this backdrop. His wife is part of the company, who he's divorcing. His daughter's part of the leadership team. They're all in this room along with the other leaders. We get through it's such a mess. We get through the accountability chart and we get the structure right, we get the roles and responsibilities right, and then we place the people. And they did this as a team. And as soon as we get it done, the leader goes, "Yeah, none of them are ready for that." And I was like, "But we just went through this whole exercise and you were part of it and decided that we're going to put these names to these seats." And earlier
Mm.
in our 90 and in the start to the day, you've admitted that you're running yourself ragged and you can't do everything on your own. That's an example of a leader that wasn't willing to change, says that they want to. I was like certain I wasn't going to get paid that day. I ended up getting paid, but they never came back.
I mean, I will say though that you held your standard of how you deliver and you're okay with not getting paid. For those that bend over backwards for wrong fit clients that just to get a paycheck, it's like the short term, you're sacrificing long term for short term. And I, wish that company the best, but it was just very clear from the story you shared that that wasn't a good fit for you. And but I love that you walk like another great point to highlight from that is there's difference between saying a thing and then like living a thing and doing and how your actions, if the actions don't match with your words, right? Like that's a hell no.
Yeah. Yeah. And he wasn't. And actually, um, they went through divorce. His wife's no longer part of the company. And I don't think his daughter is part of the company anymore either, because she was the one that was fighting for this system to help change because she saw the writing on the wall and how much it was impacting the overall leadership team.
Hey, rule number one, help people, right? Sometimes helping people that's why not having an ego is important because your ego can get in the way, your emotions and your feelings about it and attachment of things can get away from solving the issue. So
Yeah, and
issue
what
got
you can
solved.
preface. It did kind of. Well, I wish them the best as well. What I will say is I learned this as a financial advisor, and I literally would tell prospective clients this exact line, and it's something that I use in EOS as well, is, "Hey, I'm going to not always tell you what you want to hear, but I promise to always tell you what you need to hear." And sometimes that may not come across the best way that you want to hear it, right? But like, I promise to tell you the truth, which is what you need to hear. So actually, I'm in Wisconsin, so we're in the Midwest, and there's actually a big problem in the Midwest, which is called Midwest nice.
Hmm.
And Midwest nice isn't being nice and being kind are not the same things. Being kind is telling people the truth, whether they want to hear it or not. Being nice or being Midwest nice is sweeping things under the rug, kind of placating people until that rug gets too big and you trip over it and you start blowing up on people. It's more passive aggressive in the Midwest than it is actually saying just what needs to be said.
Yeah, there's a little bit of that, and where I live in central Pennsylvania, a lot of similar roots, and being the person who's just open, honest. Kim Scott's book, Radical Candor. It's like, hey, I care, but I'm going to confront you directly. That
Yeah.
is like a culture shock for some people, but for the right people, they really love. Like they're like, wow, I'm glad that you stepped forward because now we can step forward. We
Yep.
feel the confidence, empowerment to do so.
You cared enough to say the thing.
Yeah,
Yeah.
regardless if it hurt your feelings or if you have ill feelings towards me, like there's man, that's such a powerful statement too when it comes to I mean that could be the whole thing between the litmus test of yes or no. It's like start here, like can we be open and honest and this is what it looks like
Yep.
being kind. I want to switch tracks a little bit. One of the parts about working on your business is, what are the initiatives, the rocks for the EOS people that are listening that know what we're talking about with rocks, like the yearly goals, to, like grow your business, take it closer to your longer term vision. I know, like I asked you before where a lot of your client acquisition comes from and growth as referrals, but you do a lot of like marketing and working on your business with branding, whether that's doing keynote talks, whether that's meeting with other high powered entrepreneurs like with Arte, but you're sitting in a podcast studio. So what are,
Yeah.
I guess, some of the ways that you're looking to grow your business this year, rocks or what have you, that are like, maybe other implementers listening could be like, that's an interesting take. They might just be doing, asking for referrals from clients. They might just be going to networking events. Like, what are some of the things you're doing that are different?
Yeah, so I'll start with the keynotes because most often I'm getting hired to do keynotes that are not EOS related. So I wrote a book, The Kairos Code, and it came out in September, hit #1 bestseller in 12 different categories. So for a first time author, like it was super humbling. And that's the majority of the time and it's interesting. I didn't even reference EOS in the book. However, like giving those keynotes, and then obviously in my bio, I am an EOS implementer. By proxy, there's conversations that happen as a part of that. And so it's just putting yourself out there in an authentic way, whether it's giving a specific EOS talk or giving a talk that just helps people live a better life. Whatever your skill set is, like go use that and be radically authentic, because the right people, if we're going back to the marketing and those avatars, those right people are going to show up. They're going to be magnetized to you, and the wrong people will be repelled by you. And that is perfectly okay. Because if I go back to my energy, I want to be around those right people that are striving to change the world in their little sector of the world. So that's one thing. The podcast, I'll give you a different example. As you know, running a podcast is not profitable. You just it is top of funnel marketing if it's anything. When I was originally approached with it a number of years ago, I was still running my firm, and he gave me all the great my CMO gave me all the great marketing reasons. I was like, yeah, those are all good, but if I'm going to do it, I need a deeper reason. And the deeper reason that I came up with is being in the life insurance financial planning world. I know the mortality risks. I know what the top 5 regrets of the dying are. Like, I know we studied those things to help people get their financial house in order. So we're 2 generations away from being forgotten historically,
Mm,
unless you do something massive, like whether it's write a book or you're some massive leader like Abraham Lincoln or, um, any, Nikola
yeah.
Tesla or whatever you want to say. So knowing that fact, this is the first time generation wise that we could go and extend beyond 2 generations with the digital assets, with podcasting, with writing a book, with your even just your Facebook page that could live in perpetuity, and people could your third generation down could go, oh, this is who great grandfather was. This is how he thought. So my purpose behind the podcast is that my kids would always have my voice. They would
Mm.
always know my thought process. They would be part of, if they wanted to listen in on any of the conversations I was having. And then that could transpose to their kids and their kids beneath them. So we're living in an age where we can create a footprint and in a way that our legacy can extend beyond those 2 generations.
It goes back to the things you're doing are for legacy, which is the long-term benefit to yourself and your sphere versus the quick fix of, oh, I'm only doing this as a transactional thing to get leads. Well, if you're
Yeah.
only doing something to get leads, like a lot of people get turned off by that. Like, I don't want to be sold to. But if you're like creating content, whether that's by book or by podcast, and people find it helpful and valuable, look, you only need, if you get a million views on something and you get one customer, I'm going to do the thing that gives me a million views every time you get one customer, because, one out of a million, if you can get to that, you have to risk it all, risk hearing no or not now or whatever 999,000 times. But if you get one yes, you help the right person, it's still worth it. I think that frame is really powerful. And then I also wanted to share with you that the reason that I do this podcast is for the same reason that you do your podcast. It's like, so that if who knows when I'm going to go, but if my daughter can just Google my name and like say, oh, this is how he thinks, this is the kind of work he does, like she can get to know me with me not being here. So
Yeah.
thank you for sharing that. It's really powerful.
Yeah, and then the last thing on the book, just to give people that, is I didn't do that for marketing. God put it I never thought I'd be an author. Like, I always joke that if my English teachers were still alive, I don't know if they are or not, they would be absolutely shocked, and let alone a best-selling author. So, God put it on my heart to write a book to he said the lessons that I was taught through all my trials and tribulations of business weren't just meant for me, they were meant for the world. And so I just set out to write the book and give the lessons and share the vulnerability. Like the stories that I shared were very vulnerable, and the feedback and impact that it's had has been amazing.
So one thing that I have to ask you is, like, you're a very competitive guy and EOS is a very collaborative environment. And there's probably times where somebody walks in and maybe, Josh isn't the right person for them, but somebody else that'd be the right EOSI for that person, right? Like you refer people out. What is it about the way you are and the way you do business that would be like, oh, if another EOSI has somebody that's not the right fit for them, but maybe the right fit for you? Like if you could say like a sentence or two about like, hey, if this, then this would make me the right fit to refer this person.
Yeah, I think that if you have a great question, you know what's fortunate? There's only one other EOSI in Madison, Wisconsin, and
Hmm.
he got trained. Phil, great dude. He got trained 3 months before me, and we live in the same neighborhood.
No
So it's just
way.
so yeah, actually, like just completely happenstance, right? And we couldn't be more polar opposite. He's very mild mannered, kind person, just a great human, and I'm more in your face. Like, just I'm a former collegiate football player. Like, I'm more radically just authentic, going to say what needs to be said, and Phil knows that too. So if he's actually referred me to someone, goes, Josh, this person like needs you, and so that's one of the things I would say is it's not like we got to know ourselves enough to know where our boundaries are, like who's going to be the right fit. Like if I got someone that came to my doorstep that was just super mild mannered, and I knew that like the things that I would say would totally run them over, I got to give that person a Phil.
Yeah, like they need Midwest nice.
Yeah, like, they need that, and then the other perspective that I gave you, pre-show is, like, there's some EOSIs that have never run a business or
Mm.
owned a business and actually just fell in love with EOS because of how it can transform a company, but they don't know the pressures and the weight that owning a business and having a lot of employees really carries. I just put a social media reel up yesterday about the invisible weight that entrepreneurs carry. Like, I'm like, if you've never laid awake at night and understood and tried to figure out how you're going to make payroll the next day, if you've never laid awake at night trying to figure out which bills of yours you're not going to pay so that you can pay your employees, if you've never laid awake at night and uh, like the six-figure loss, seven-figure loss, and a bad business deal. Like you don't understand that pressure. Some entrepreneurs need people like me that understand that pressure because it's real and it's invisible and it can completely drown you.
I'm nodding my head in agreement for those that are just listening. It's because I've been there too, and I know that that's just a very unique part of the journey that some people need the empathy for somebody that's walked the same walk. So thank you for sharing that.
Well, I'll give
One.
you the story that I gave you ahead of time too, or for your
Mhm.
listeners, I should say, is like I have a client right now that's pressing pause on EOS because their accounts receivable got a little out of control, so they're hurting for money. And I was just on the phone with them this morning, helping them solve that issue. And remember, currently, I'm not getting paid by this person, but I'm there for them to help them solve this issue because for me, that's just part of my ethos. But I'm not going to force him into doing a quarterly, knowing that he's hurting financially. I understand the weight that he's carrying for the employees, the bank that has the note, all that different stuff. So I'm just helping them solve the issue, not getting paid for it.
Right. You're helping first. That's to me what helping first is. So one last question. It's not super deep, but where can people learn more, connect with you, maybe drop your book, things like that?
Yeah. So if anyone wants, speaking of the book, it's on anywhere you can find books, Amazon, Barnes and Noble, the Kairos Code. There's a I wasn't trying to be an expert in anything because a lot of self-development leadership books, like people are trying to carve out their niche and being an expert, and that's a great smart marketing play, right? That being said, I'm just trying to share from the journey and give lessons from the journey, and people have really resonated with those. So pick up the book if you can. Would love to get any feedback that you have on it. I mean, I'm really easy to find on social media at Josh Kosnik. I haven't met another Josh Kosnik, so it's got great SEO, and yeah, I can subscribe to newsletter or whatever else to stay in touch.
Thank you so much, Josh, for being on. It was a pleasure to have this conversation again. I feel like I just had an energy drink just talking to you. Um, and for those of you that are listening, thank you for listening. You know, I don't run ads of the show. My only ask is if you found value, share it with a friend. Till next time, be well.